Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my Daily Dose with Tim. Today is season 3, episode 46. And as you can see, I am on the road again. And speaking of which, I just want to give everybody a heads up that this week, my Daily Dose with Tim is actually going to be coming to you from 3 different time zones as I will be on the move again. Now, coming back here though, as I promised, a lot of you guys have been also asking about why don't you share a little bit more about creative financing, what it is, how it works, and everything. And to be honest, and this is something that I think I've been toying with for a long time, and you just really confirmed that this might be a very valuable subject for you to understand. And if you've been actually following this entire season of my Daily Dose so far, then you understand the fact that I say creative financing is not really a single strategy. Rather, creative financing is actually a collective of understanding and execution of multiple strategies. And so as a result, I really gave it some serious thoughts about how I'm going to approach this entire subject as it is very big and wide. And so, like everything else that we do, going back to the basics, building from the ground up is how I like it because I'm a big fan of building a solid foundation so that because it's about money. When you build a solid foundation, you don't really have to worry about how the world is going to change around you, the economic conditions, the inflation rate, the interest rates. When you understand the basics and leverage the basics to build the financial rock that you can stand on. Yes, the big wins might take some things off the top once in a while. However, it is never going to shake you for the worse. And so today, what I want to go into and start with is what I would typically call the 5 laws of investing. So I know we're pulling back a little bit again about investing. However, I really want everybody to understand this first and foremost. And today I'm going to talk about rule number 1. Rule number 1 is always be on the lookout for money. Always be on the lookout for money because we're talking about creative financing. The funny thing is, creative financing, by definition, and just even in the phrase and the words itself, doesn't say any sort of asset class. And that's the first thing that I really want to make sure that everybody it becomes more and more aware of is that I keep emphasizing that even as real estate investors, real estate is the asset class that we choose to leverage. Because once you understand how to do creative financing, you can actually use creative financing into any sort of asset class. Could be paper asset, could be buying business, could be buying restaurants, could be also starting any type of ventures that you will like. The idea behind it though is that you are literally just leveraging the funds that you have creatively or your access to resources or better yet financial resources is going to help you how to fund different deals creatively. And more often than not, when we use creative financing, is probably because there is a certain lack of resources in the first place, first of all. However, second of all, really the advanced investors, it doesn't matter if you got money or not. The idea behind creative financing for advanced investors, even when they have access to the money and the funds to do the deals that they want to do at all turns, it is always about how to actually make the money work harder. So if you remember going back to the 6 priorities of real estate investing, number 1 is cash flow. Number 2 is return on investment. And as I fondly call return on investment as an ESL person, English as a second language person, is how hard is your money working for you? So more often than not, when you are able to leverage creative financing strategies, your return on investment relatively increases over time. And so rule number 1 or law number 1, as I always call it, is always be on the lookout for money. Okay. Remember, we always say that it does take money to make money. It just doesn't have to be all of your money. Okay. And so when we're on the lookout for money, again, money can be broken down or funding sources can be broken down into largely a lot of the times two different sources, two different main sources. First one is what we call institutional lending. The other one is what we call private lending. Okay, so sometimes I would argue that creative financing actually falls under the private lending umbrella. Creative financing actually falls under the the private lending umbrella. However, most days I would actually put creative financing above institutional and private money. So, as in, if you can visualize this, I don't have my flip chart with me today. And as you can see, now I'm talking with my hands. So, the creative financing really is the bigger umbrella, and the subcategories now become institutional money and private money. And so, on that note, always be on the lookout. So, it goes without saying, understanding having access to, let's say, mortgage brokers and loan facilitators, very, very key. However, on the private side, though, I want to share a quick story with everybody. And I can see that some of you that are watching this live right now, you actually have heard the story maybe at some point, because this was one of the most, in my opinion, and just my personal experience wise, one of those stories that, until you actually experience it, you still question, did that really happen? So I remember, and many of you actually know, that I've had a lot of health challenges. So what that really means is that I was in and out of the hospital quite a lot at different points in my life. And after I became financially free in 2012, I just decided that, well, now that I don't have a regular job that takes up 80 hours a week of my time, I'm still actively investing. What else can I do to give back, to feel fulfilled, and really to fill some of my hours with a task or with something that would bring me some joy and some fulfillment? Because after all, those are the things that I really didn't get from my job. Put up with it simply because of the fact that the pay was good, and the job itself provided a little bit of incentive. Regardless, the point is, I decided that I wanted to go and volunteer. And one of the places that I wanted to volunteer at is the hospital. And simply because of the fact that every time I went to the hospital, the staff, the nurses, the care team around me, they were always, always really, really good to me. They took really good care of me. And sometimes I also joke that when you walk into a hospital and they know you by your first name, all the way down to the reception desk, that's probably not a good sign. Anyway, so that was the first place that I thought about doing something. And because of my career background, because of my natural tendencies, and just my collective work experiences at that point, I was thinking, well, maybe I can do something for marketing, for example. And I went to their volunteer office and look for different postings and opportunities to volunteer. And at the time, and this was actually because I actually don't remember now, I just remember it was probably around fall of 2012 at this point. And and the only position that they were looking for volunteers is somebody that can occasionally drive their orders, because this was before Uber Eats, DoorDash, and delivery services became really, really, really big, mind you. And so for doctors and nurses, they have luncheons sometimes and lunch meetings. And so they were just looking for people that could actually pick up, deliver, set up some of these lunches for their functions at the hospital internally. And so I go, well, you know what? Yes, I'll do this because I really want to do something, really want to give back, because everybody at this hospital, at least, the people that I was dealing with, not everybody, have been extremely kind to me and very helpful. And obviously they helped me get my health back, so to speak. And so I took on the position. And one day, uh, as I was setting the deli trays up, this lady standing next to me, she came up and she goes, Tim, right? And I go, yeah. And she goes, well, I've seen you here a few times now, and you look pretty young to me. Well, we're talking 11 something years ago now at this point, so I was young. And so she goes, you look pretty young to me. It is a Tuesday. I forgot what day of the week really it was. It's Tuesday at 11 something, but I've seen you around quite a few times. Like, how are you able to volunteer? Don't you have to work? Don't you work? And I feel like I have a kid that's around your age and he has to be at work. And so from that conversation forward, I started sharing I started sharing a little bit about my journey, my health challenges, and the fact that I became a real estate investor and I was able to retire myself and became financially free and through real estate investing. And so as the conversation went on, looking back now, you could just kind of see her eyes go wider and wider and wider and bigger. And she goes, at one point, all of a sudden, she goes, okay, I'm going to stop you right here. You need to talk to my husband. And I go, okay. Later on, I found out that her husband is a surgeon. And again, in the interest of protecting people's privacy and confidentiality, I'm keeping the story as relevant and contextual as possible. And she goes, yeah, well, right now we live in a beautiful home, and over the years we've actually bought about six properties, and they are beautiful houses as well as rentals. However, none of them is cash flowing. In fact, we actually have to feed into them every single month. And I just always thought that there's got to be other ways to do this, because if other people are not making as much as my husband, and she was being very real about it, and it's true because he made a lot of money. Let's put it that way. And if other people like she's just going thinking out loud, like, I don't understand how other people do it. And we know that financially, we are considerably more resourceful than the average household. And so, yeah, have a conversation. Long story short, had a conversation, and they became one of my most successful money partners over the years, especially in the beginning of my career. And so, again, always be on the lookout for money. I have so many other stories, personally as well as other people's. One of them got their mailman to actually invest with them. However, it wasn't as quickly as how it happened for me with the doctor's story. He would always say, and this is actually a person that lives and operates in the United Kingdom, where I operate in as well, and that's how I got to know the story and got to know this person, got to know this investor. And he would always say, once I started getting educated and always be on the lookout for money, every time a mailman drops off the mail and knocks on the door, I would just go, "You got any money you want to invest?" Every single time. And I think if I remember the story correctly, he said this went on for a good year, almost a year and a half, before the mailman one day finally says, yes, let's talk. So it's just really interesting. And the funny thing is, your story might end up being something different, and you might have examples already that are very different. So feel free to share any interesting story that you have. However, again, the idea is open up your mind. And again, it really comes down to how you share with people. And so we're almost going back to raising funds again. Okay, the idea really is you don't seriously just go up to people and ask for money. Be on the lookout for money. And remember, combining that with one of the biggest mindset pieces that I shared when we were discussing a little bit about raising funds before too, is that it is always about creating win-win and sharing the wealth. It is always about sharing the wealth. And so it doesn't matter who they are or what they do. The point is, every single encounter that you have with them, you can start to think about, how can I help them be better off financially? Well, let's start by having conversations. What are they doing with their money? And so some people that have been trained, more officially trained in sales, so to speak, and you'll hear quite a few different acronyms and strategies and approaches. One of them is, I think, what they call FORM, FORM. It stands for, it's an acronym, and it stands for, I believe, family, occupation, recreation, and M usually stands for money. Meaning, if you want to be a bit more strategic and structured about your approach, you can definitely, when you're having the conversation with them, go through them, how's the family? What's the family like? Get to know them a little bit as people, as real people. And then occupation, what do they currently do? I mean, in the case of a mailman, it's pretty straightforward, right? And ask them, how long have you been doing this for? What got you into it? What do you love about it? What don't you like about it? If you could change something, what would you change about it? And then recreation, what do you do for fun? And the thing about recreation is that most people's hobbies and recreations tend to provide some insight into their bigger aspirations, their bigger passions. And so this is where they start to share a little bit about maybe what they're dreaming about or the dream lifestyle that they have. And that links right back into the last letter, which is M, that stands for money. Okay, so this is what you're currently doing, and this is really the life that you're thinking about wanting to create. Where's the gap here, and how can I help you bridge the gap, so to speak? Because if you don't mind, let me take a few minutes to share a little bit about what I do on a daily basis. I'm a real estate investor, or I'm an investor. So really what that means is I help myself and other people create multiple sources of income and secure their long-term wealth and retirement through real estate investing. And so on that note, I just wanted to say thank you again for joining me today. And today, as you can see, very casual, because this week my Daily Dose with Tim is going to come to you from 3 different time zones because I am on the road once again. Today, sunny Vancouver. Oh my goodness. It's really, really rare that you actually get this kind of weather in Vancouver, the lower mainland, and not here for too long. So I will see you back here. And as we continue the big, big subject of creative financing. But don't forget, law number 1, which is today's episode, always be on the lookout for money. And along the way, as you can see, going to continue to sprinkle in some raising funds tips as well. And so I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked it, make sure you hit the like button, comment, give me some questions, give me some feedback as we go along. Again, my daily dose with Tim, I don't structure or script anything. It's really largely based on your feedback. And so far, the entire season has grown extremely organically. And so just let me know. And if there are people that you think can benefit from learning about investing, how money works, about real estate investing in general, make sure you share these videos with them, invite them into the group. And last but not least, if you remember, this weekend, I'm going to be in Toronto as well. We are doing a 2-day live workshop that's going to offer what I call now a Master Investor Summit. For 2 days, you're going to be learning about multiple real estate investing strategies because remember, creative financing, as I said earlier, is a collection of strategies combined together so that in any situation, you are able to pull out different tools to make the deal work. So on that note, I'm going to be sharing the link for registration below again, and there is a buy one, get one offer. And in addition to that, a 50% off offer at the moment that Trust Your Talent is offering. So with that said, thank you again. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you back here at the next episode. Live well, everybody.